When did you first acquire an interest in dyslexia?
I was a high school or junior high English and social studies teacher. And we had a block program where we had the same kids for English and the same kids for social studies. And it really works quite well. And I realized that I had a large number of students who struggled with reading. They understood the history and everything was going well, but in English class they really struggled. And at that time they did a Lorge Thorndike intelligence test on all of the kids. It was a paper and pencil test. I started looking up scores of some of my students and discovered that the struggling readers had high mechanical intelligence and the low verbal intelligence, because this was a test that you had to read. So the IQ test was testing their reading, not their actual abilities. So the mechanical part about which way the fan blade goes was much better. So these kids had average intelligence. And then we began to get reports from the Reading Center in Rochester using words like dyslexia and aphasia. And I thought I was well prepared to be a teacher, and I had never heard of those words before. And so we started doing some investigating, and I took the class with Paula Rome and Gene Osmond in 1968. And that's also when I joined then the Orton Society.
So that's basically when you entered the field of dyslexia.
Absolutely. And I think because I was an English teacher with a huge appreciation for language, that made my transition into remediation much easier than if I were a reading teacher.
And where was this?
This was Robbinsdale Junior High in the Robbinsdale school system, which is a first-tier suburb out of Minneapolis.
And did you stay there then throughout your career?
I stayed in the system. We started the first LD program in the state of Minnesota, working with groups of 10 to 15. We screened the entire student body by using the Monroe spelling test, and the principal read the words over the PA system. And we called 100 children that we were really concerned about. We sent letters to their parents inviting them to a meeting, and guess how many people showed up? 99 families and one next-door neighbor. And these were all mothers who were hockey mothers and swimming mothers, and mothers get together and they talk. And they all knew each other, and they were waiting for us to get a clue.
So when you did your training in Rochester, you were working with Paula Rome and Gene Osmond and
Arlene Sunday was my main mentor during that time.
Great. And what did you find most interesting about the work you did in Robbinsdale?
That there are so many kids with so much potential that's being lost.
Absolutely. What was the most challenging thing being in a public school system? Was there did you have to make an attempt to woo over the other teachers?
I tried to keep a low profile. I'm a consensus builder. I'm a bringer together of people, etc. But there were people set to really launch some things. And when we produced our first test results, these were the ones that said, well, obviously you can't make that much progress in that short of a time, so you must have faked your test results. You know, just terrible, but those days fortunately are gone.
Right. Do you have specific students from that far back that you recall?
I do, but I think there's a confidentiality issue. But when I left teaching, the parents gave me this ring.
Oh, how beautiful.
And this ring has an unpolished diamond. And that was the kids before, and the polished diamonds, the kids afterwards.
Oh, wonderful. And then you left Robbinsdale when?
I left Robbinsdale in '88, and which was also the year I became president of IDA. and took a job with the Menninger Clinic as its director of teacher education. So not only did I become president, I had a job switch. And fortunately, Ro Bowler was the executive director, and she made it happen, and it happened very graciously.
So when you were working at Menninger's, you were seeing not only children who were dyslexic and had learning disabilities, but also some pretty significant social emotional problems, am I right?
Right, and we also had adults that we worked with at Menninger. I did a lot of outreach, staff development, teacher training programs throughout Kansas and Missouri and the United States. And Menninger was a delightful place to work with because I didn't have to fight people. Whatever I said happened. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience, and they supported my role as IDA president.
Great. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about that IDA presidency, and then we'll kind of get back to what you're doing today. When you were president, that you started in '88?
Through '92. Through
'92. And what were some of the critical issues that you faced?
We started our fiscal year with $370. And we were faced with the possibility of having to go to our biggest branch and beg for a loan. But as it turned out, we didn't have to do that. And one of the things we did is we switched the membership renewal so it was all year long rather than everyone at one date. And that kept the cash flow coming in so that we didn't have to face that again.
Right. And do you remember how many branches were involved then?
I remember one of the first things they did was to bring North Carolina in as a branch. And they recently celebrated their 40th anniversary, so it's been a while. I can't remember the number of branches. I know now it's 46.
And what expertise did you think that you provided as the leader of the board?
Well, I was the first classroom teacher to become president of this organization. And I'm a consensus builder and a collaborator. But I had Roger Saunders, Margaret Rawson, Regina Cece, all people really dedicated to the cause, outstanding in their own careers, and they literally groomed me to be president. And so I had that opportunity, and I had them right with me.
Was there any of your own personal expertise that you thought was lacking?
Well, as a classroom teacher, I was already thinking groups, when most people were thinking one-on-one tutoring. Because I was junior high and secondary, everyone else was talking about the little kids. So I realized that we had room to grow. But I also realized that there were divisions within the Orton family at that time. And I worked very hard to collaborate with all of the Orton-based programs to bring them together. And I said, look, we can't do this internecine warfare anymore because the enemy's too big.
Right. Had you had any real leadership roles before that? I mean, I know you directed the program at Menninger and so on, but do you think that you were well prepared to be president?
I was president of the Robbinsdale Federation of Teachers for 2 terms, and we're talking AFL-CIO. So we're talking about a group of militant people. And many times in an organization like that, the leaders are more liberal than the members. And when I came to the world of Orton, I found the same situation. And so I felt I was well trained and well suited to do that.
And how do you think that your classroom work helped you in your role as president?
That part I don't know, other than a focused goal in mind that it can be done and it should be done. And I once had a conversation with Margaret Rawson, and I said, you know, this organization is been in effect since 1949, and I can't believe the ignorance out there. And Margaret reached over and patted me on my knee in her typical fashion. She said, Wilson, the problem isn't ignorance. The problem is the school systems have presumed knowledge, and that's what we're fighting against. If it was ignorance, we wouldn't be fighting with the schools.
Aha, okay. I remember that I used to love to go to the sessions that you did at national and Upper Midwest branch conferences, where you would bring a student or two and actually work with the students. And I think that was so meaningful, and I don't see that happening so much today. What do you think has changed?
Well, first of all, I think in many ways we're getting away from the core values that we have some skills that we need to share with teachers. I don't think they need more philosophy. I think they need more hands-on kinds of things. And teachers need students in order to learn. And that's why in my training courses I built in the practicum, because it's the practicum is the proof of the pudding. So teachers watching me work with a small group of students gives them the courage to be able to take some risks.
Great. Well, I miss seeing you do that now. How about, I know you left Menninger when? Their program closed, right?
No, the Menninger program was going very strong. We were the first outpatient program to break into the black. However, Menninger was contemplating a move to Houston, Texas. Now, my wife and I moved from Minneapolis, Minnesota to Topeka, and that was a culture change. But to go from Topeka to Houston was just not viable. So I went into private practice, and then 5 years later, my wife was able to retire from nursing, and we looked at each other and said, let's go back to Minnesota with the kids.
I know you have several grandchildren nearby.
We have 5 grandchildren.
Yeah, wonderful. And I think you're still working, aren't you? Tutoring in a school?
Well, I teach graduate courses, and that's one of the things that I was able to accomplish through Baker University. Any fellow of the Orton Gillingham Academy can offer 3 graduate credits for training in the Orton Gillingham approach. Accidentally, I ended up with a client at a small Lutheran school in town. When they realized what my gifts were, they wanted me to work with them. But since I had a client, I couldn't charge the school any money because you can't have 2 masters. So when the client was no longer mine, then I'm working 6 hours a day minimum. 6 hours a week minimum with additional work if necessary. So here I am in my middle 70s still working, but it's great.
That's great. Lucky children.
Oh, thank you.
And do you have any just kind of message to teachers coming up? I know at this conference already there's been lots of discussion about the type of teacher training that teachers really need to work with all children, but especially with children with dyslexia. So do you have any comments for upcoming teachers?
Well, as branches, we've been working on licensure changes, and the biggest obstacle are the colleges. They aren't really excited about having to teach syllable types, et cetera, because who's going to teach them? So the next thing is that in some branches, in our case in Upper Midwest branch, we have moms on a mission. And they separated themselves out from the branch because they felt they could be more effective as mothers of kids who were struggling. So the changes in teacher legislation is one way. But teachers have to be open to the fact that there's more than one way to teach reading, and there's no one right or wrong way for each kid. But we know nationally now that 60% of our 4th graders have not passed the reading exam. And I don't know how the traditional reading establishment can explain a 60% failure rate. As a country, we can't have that.
And just finally, thinking about, I mean, you've been a member now over 40 years of the IDA, or first the Orton Society and then the Orton Dyslexia Society and now IDA. What's been the most important thing about that lifelong, almost professional lifelong association with the organization?
I think we did some research on the Orton Oaks, which you started, and I was designated to carry it out. And we discovered that we have a large number of our members who have stuck with us for more than 25 years. Many organizations, when the parents' kids leave school, the parents drop out of the organization. But our organization is strong in the fact that we have over 500 long-term members of the organization that have stuck with us through thick and thin. The other thing I'm pleased is we have never been sucked into fads. We've always had our values, our point of view, and the research is coming our way, and we've never shifted course. And I think that's very important, that we've kept our focus.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Any last minute remarks, last parting remarks?
No, but I'm really pleased to see all of the members on the matrix, which you can see all the effective programs for students with dyslexia. I'm glad to see them collaborating and working together, and I'm glad to see the Orton Gillingham Academy established to go along with the Slingerland Academy and all the others. And I'm also glad to see IMSLIC come out of this as a collaborative effort.
Well, I know you were somewhat instrumental in the IMSLIC, weren't you?
And the Orton Gillingham Academy.
Thanks so much for all your service.
Thank you.